All right, welcome into One of One Sports. It's Monday, so we got another college basketball weekend reaction and talk a little bit about this weekend's games. And then I want to touch on just like kind of stuff that happened throughout the week. It was really busy for me, didn't make any picks or anything, but some crazy stuff happened, especially in Michigan, with Michigan State and Michigan both hitting buzzer beaters. And it's just that time of year, right? You know, it's March when the buzzer beaters start happening like this. So getting straight into it, from the ACC, there weren't too many huge games, and I only had two big takeaways. And the first one is just Duke is clearly peaking at the right time. In their last six games, they've scored 100 plus, and three of them had 97 in one of the others. So their offense is playing the best it has. They're dominating the ACC, which, to be fair, is one of the weaker power conferences, but they're doing exactly what a top team should do, crushing their opponents. And obviously, last week they crushed Illinois, an Illinois team that, yes, they've had some bad games, but nothing like what they had against Duke. And they just beat Michigan at Michigan, a team that at the time was hovering between a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. So that's a huge win. The defense is playing its best ball. Cooper Flag is maybe the best player in the country. It's just him and Janai Broome really for Player of the Year award. This team looks awesome right now and definitely has a great chance of winning March Madness. And yes, Tyrese Proctor is out, but they expect him back before the end of the year, and they're still been on a tear even in their games without him. And the only other takeaway I had was that North Carolina, who's right there on the bubble, maybe first team out, but right in that range, if they can beat Duke at home on Saturday in their final game of the regular season, I believe they will be in the NCAA tournament. And that's really all you can ask for, right? A shot at home against your rivalry in the best rivalry in all of college basketball. You've been playing your best ball of the season. You've got RJ Davis, reigning ACC Player of the Year. You've got five-star freshmen in Ian Jackson, Drake Powell. You've got Elliot Cadeau. You have all these pieces. The talent is there. Can you put on one great game against your rival Duke to get into the NCAA tournament? I'm not sure, but I'm really excited to watch on Saturday. But yeah, that's all I had for the ACC. So moving on to the Big Ten, where again, just two takeaways. And the first is that Michigan State has clearly established themselves as the top team in the Big Ten. You beat Purdue. I can't remember if it was at Purdue or at Michigan State, but you beat Purdue. Then you beat Maryland in, Trey Holloman with that buzzer beater from like 3/4 court in a great game. You beat Maryland. You beat Michigan at Michigan before that. You beat Wisconsin now. So this is four straight wins against like top 15-ish opponents. I think all teams that are projected to be top four seeds in March Madness. You beat them in four consecutive games. You take the top spot in the Big Ten with a full game lead over Michigan at this point. You maybe can even move up to the one line if you end up winning the Big Ten conference tournament. But yeah, Michigan State has just been on a roll. Their bigs are playing great. Their guards are playing better. Trey Holloman obviously hit that clutch shot, but Jace Richardson, sorry, has been really good as well. And overall, the team just looks great right now and a real threat in March. And on the other side, the Michigan Wolverines, who I root for, it seems like the luck maybe is starting to run out a little bit. You lose to Michigan State, and though you responded, all the games you've been winning, like since I think it's January 12th, the last like 7 games or so, something like that, that Michigan have won, have all been by 4 points or less, and they're not all against top teams. Hold on. Microphone adjustment. Rutgers pushed them to the wire at Michigan. Namari Burnett was able to hit a game-winning deep three. You lost at home against Michigan State. You got crushed at home by Illinois. You're no longer at the top of the Big Ten. You'll have a chance to kind of salvage it a little bit when you this final game of the season when you go to Michigan State. And that would save a lot of face if you can get the road win and then earn a share of the Big Ten title. But if not, then it's kind of a bad way to end, or definitely a bad way to end the season, and not what you like to see going into March. You want to be playing your best basketball, and Michigan does not look to be doing so right now. Outside of these two teams, I still think Maryland's very good, played great against Michigan State, but nothing too interesting besides that. Purdue, I'm still skeptical of. Wisconsin, I think, is pretty solid. UCLA and Oregon are good teams. And am I forgetting anyone in the Big Ten? I feel like I am. Oh, well, I want to talk about like Illinois. I think it's just kind of hit or miss with their games, but I think that covers everything I want to talk about in the Big Ten. So the Big 12, where I have a decent amount to talk about. First, Houston, as we've been projecting for a while now, is now comfortably a number one seed, only behind Auburn and Duke. They have comfortably won the Big 12. They'll be the top team in the Big 12 tournament. They've beaten Arizona. They've beaten Texas Tech. Like redeemed themselves as that was their only conference loss. And yeah, Texas Tech was a little banged up, but still. And Houston, they're just great defensively. Milos Uzan has improved so much throughout the year. LJ Cryer has been great for them. And yeah, they're one of the best teams Kelvin Sampson has had in his tenure at Houston. Obviously, a great chance to win in March Madness. And then my second takeaway is that Texas Tech and Iowa State, who I think were previously on a tier two in the Big 12 with Arizona, have separated. We've seen what Iowa State can do when they're healthy, what they did in Maui. They can be one of the best teams in the country. And Texas Tech, we've seen them beat Houston. We saw them split with Arizona. And now with Toppin healthy, and even they've still been a little banged up, but McMillan's one of the best shooters. And they're just all around a really good team. They're well coached. I think they are a bigger threat in March than Arizona as well, and even a better team in the Big 12. I think Arizona is still ahead of Iowa State in the standings, but when healthy, I think this Iowa State team is clearly better, as we saw when they rematched this past weekend. In Arizona, I don't like what I'm seeing. This is a team that I expected a lot from coming into the year. They were disappointed at the start, picked it up in the middle. I was liking it a lot better, and now I'm seeing somewhat of a disappointing finish. And based off Tommy Lloyd's history in March, I'm not very confident in this team right now towards the end of the season. And then you could say a lot of the same things for Kansas. A lot of people had them as the preseason number one team in the country, and it's just gone off the rails. They're now looking at like an 8 seed, maybe a first round exit. Definitely don't look like a second weekend team in March. And it's just crazy to see like the team with this much expectations, especially under Bill Self, who's been so good, so consistent, have this poor of a season. And it does certainly say a lot that you're still going to be probably like an 8 or 7 seed in March, and that's such a disappointing season. But that's just what it is at Kansas, especially when you had the expectations that they did this year. Moving on to the SEC, potentially the game of the year in Tennessee. Where does Tennessee play? What city? I'm not sure. Oh, well, they defeated Alabama 79-76 on a buzzer beater, and Alabama is going to be kicking themselves for this one because you lose. Well, this was a battle for the number one, not like final, but as it stands now, the winner of this game would be a projected number one seed if the season ended today in March Madness, which is obviously super valuable. And Tennessee beat Alabama at home, but Alabama, you're up 76-72. You foul Chaz Lanier driving to the basket, which obviously you can't do that. There's no reason to do that. You don't box out on the free throw and then foul after allowing the rebound. You can't do that. You still have a chance to tie. You miss the shot, but you're given another chance, and you can't inbound the ball, get a 5-second violation, and then allow Tennessee to drill up the court calmly and Meshack to get a wide open three. Yes, he's not the best shooter, but still, you could have done something. Just a terrible, terrible way to end this game by Alabama. Poor execution. Got to criticize Nate Oates for the coaching here, and it was baffling how they imploded at the end of this game, especially with what was on the line. And now you look ahead, they have Florida this week, they have Auburn this week, two teams that I personally think are better than them. You'll get Florida at home, you'll get Auburn on the road. I would expect at best 1-1. I'm leaning towards 0-2. You go from what was looking like a surefire 1 seed just maybe a week ago. And now I think you're looking at one of the lower 2 seeds by the end of this week, potentially, or at least middle tier 2 seed. Tennessee, on the other hand, you have a pretty easy remainder of your schedule that I think you have a pretty decent shot of keeping the 1 seed. Maybe a team like Florida can pass them. If Florida gets a win over Alabama, something like that. But like Michigan State, St. John's, I don't think are going to have a good enough resume to pass them, even though they're clearly the best teams in their respective conferences. And maybe it'll come down to if Tennessee performs well in the SEC tournament. but right now they are in a good spot to keep that final 1 seed. Next up, I think the bubble kind of bursted for two of these teams. Texas and Arkansas gave in horrendous performances. Arkansas scored 14 points in the first half against South Carolina, a team with just one win in conference play, and it was against Texas last week. Sure, they're playing better ball right now, but you can't score 14 points in a half with what Arkansas has on the line. That hurts a ton. And then Texas, you had a home game against Georgia, and then just out of the gate, got blitzed. A team in Georgia that's right there just behind you on the bubble. You needed to have that one, and you gave a terrible performance as well. You now have back-to-back losses against other bubble teams, losing to Arkansas and losing to Georgia. You're now on the outside looking in. I would expect. Same for Arkansas, I would think. And the bubble may have bursted for these two teams. Something else I want to touch on, didn't put it in the graphic though, is I think Vanderbilt may be doing too well on the bubble because now you're looking at moving to like a 9 seed maybe. And that's just not the spot I think you want to be because obviously then you have to play the 1 seed sooner. I think it's better to get in that 7, 10, or 11 range where you have the bottom half of the bracket, not the top half. Just a little note though, Vanderbilt was very good having that comeback win against Missouri, hitting those final, I think it was 5 threes to send the game into overtime. Forgot to put it on the graphics here, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it was a great game, one of the best of the weekend, an overtime win for Vanderbilt over a top team in Missouri that also I think played really well, controlled it for most of the game. You'd like to see better defense down the stretch, but still a very good team in Missouri. Then finally, I think Texas A&M and Kentucky are kind of, they look like pretenders, right? Kentucky, it's kind of because of injuries. Jackson Robinson's been out for a while. He's out for the season. And when they were healthy, they looked like a much better team. But now, even at home against Auburn, just wasn't very competitive. And this team just doesn't look like a true threat in March. And I would say the same thing about Texas A&M with what happened against Florida and how they've looked the past few weeks. The resume is going to get these teams both top 4 seeds, maybe top 3 seeds for each of them. But I could see second round exits, maybe even like a shocker first round upset. I think the SEC is boosting these two teams a little bit in terms of resume, and I think they're going to be overseeded and potentially early exits in March. I see them more as pretenders. Outside of that, anything else happened this week? St. John's continues to roll in the Big East, clearly the best team there. The Mountain West has gotten interesting with what Colorado State and Boise State are doing. Gonzaga looked good to end the season in the West Coast Conference. But nothing too notable. Let me know if you guys think I missed anything or if you had different takeaways from this past weekend. I'm looking forward to this final week of the regular season and then, of course, Champ Week and conference tournaments. It is officially March, so it's time for March Madness. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Until next time.